Welcome to The System Works, the lifestyle channel that shows you who you are, what you truly want, and how to get it. The System Works. Own it. Welcome to The System Works. I'm your host, Ernest Phillips, and today we get to ask the question, do you have the courage to receive? We've all heard the phrase, and I talk about it. It is better to give than receive. We know that. We've heard that. But I'm going to ask you, do you have the courage to receive? Because giving is easier. It's safer. You are in control. You are in charge. But receiving, that can take vulnerability. That takes some humility. And it's hard to receive. So let's look at why. In order to receive, first of all, you're not in control. You don't get to decide what's being given, and you're like me. You're going to have barriers. You're going to think about, did you earn it? Are you worthy? What if they're giving you something that makes you feel uncomfortable? What if they're giving you something more than you really think that they need to be giving you? These are all really difficult things to handle. But I will tell you, it takes courage to receive. One of the tug tips that addresses this is that it takes more courage to genuinely receive than it does to give. I will give you a wonderful example. There was a friend of mine, and she is a wonderful human being, and this is about a decade ago. And she was going through life. She had some difficulties in dating. She was choosing guys that were just way beneath her. And it was just frustrating to watch. And one day I went to her and I said, how much will it cost for me to take you through coaching? And she was very upfront. She said, I do not have the money. And I said, how much money can you afford? And she said, basically nothing. I said, can you afford $25 a session? And she said, I could probably do that. And I said, fine. I said, I cannot handle watching you go through life with being as much of a wonderful human being that you are and making these decisions. I don't want to watch it. Let me help. And she agreed. And it was awesome. And typical results, she started to have boundaries and started to implement conflict management. And her relationship with her daughter got better. And she ended up getting a raise within 6 months after completing the coaching. And these are all things very typical of what happens when people go through the coaching. The other thing that went on is she ended up choosing a different type of person that she would normally not choose. And they dated, and that was healthy. And when everything went on, I was able to then coach her daughter and her son-in-law before they got married. And all of these things happened because she said yes to receiving, knowing that what it was costing me and all that was not a quote unquote fair price. But that wasn't the issue. The issue was I offered and she received. She didn't let her pride or any of the other things get in the way. And this is what we do. We let all these other things get in the way of receiving things. So here's your action step. The next time someone gives you something, especially when you don't think you deserve it, especially when you don't think you're worthy, especially when it is uncomfortable, say yes, because there's a pretty good chance you might need it. There's a pretty good chance they're doing it for a reason, and it's their reason. Let them be in charge of giving, and you be in charge of receiving. And it does take courage. It takes courage to receive something and not overthink it and to not get into the trap of, why are they really doing it? Are you going to have to pay them back? Are there strings? let all that go. That's on their stuff. That's on their ownership. You get to decide to receive. So I encourage you to do it. What's in it for you? You are receiving. You are getting things. Remember, the gift of giving is just that. It's a gift. And it's more about them giving than you being worthy or anything else. So I encourage you to be courageous and receive. Thanks for joining. We hope you enjoyed this episode of The System Works. Have fun with the action steps. Enjoy the Wi-Fis. Click like, click subscribe, and comment. The good and the bad, we like them all. We look forward to seeing you next time. The System Works. Own it.